marriage is probably an interesting topic in 2026. There's all types of different perspectives and what people think about marriage, if it's necessary, whatever case may be. But maybe we're just a little bit traditional over here, right? And maybe you all agree and you're aspiring towards marriage. So we want to kind of continue the topic and say, okay, you found the boyfriend and girlfriend or wherever you are. How do you think about kind of building things up towards engagement as being like a next step and then going from there to marriage?
So quick recap. So we met in 2021.
Beginning
of 2021. So right at the cusp.
Yeah, we survived COVID. 2020 was a rough year. We made it through.
We didn't have to meet each other with masks on. We were good. But we met on the dating app Hinge. We had a really great experience on the dating app. We knew exactly what we were looking for. We knew the nature of the game of dating, because I know it could be a hot topic. It could be an interesting process. You meet all kinds of people, you get all kinds of matches, right? And have all kinds of experiences. But for us, we had a great experience. We hit it off. We were both attracted to each other's profiles. And immediately the first conversation that we had, we connected so well. So we connected emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. That was awesome. And obviously physically, I found him attractive, obviously. But the biggest thing was we just had this amazing electrifying connection. So from that, we went, I think we went on a couple dates, by the third date, we knew we wanted to be exclusive to each other. And then from there, I think it was a fast, progressive process for us where the next couple dates, we just had this conversation of, okay, now that are we boyfriend and girlfriend, and are we exclusive? So that was established, and that required communication. And fast forward to the point when you proposed to me. That was a whole journey. That's a different topic. That was a bit up and down. We actually ended up breaking up before we got to get back together and we got engaged. So that's a different topic that we'll go into. But the biggest thing we wanted to focus on is, like my husband said, how do you go from being boyfriend and girlfriend to making that step, that jump to becoming, working towards marriage. And the first thing that I want to start off by saying is, when you do know what you're looking for, you have to be extremely, and I talked about this in the first video, is you have to be extremely honest with yourself and have this level of introspection and self-awareness where you understand what marriage means to you, if you even believe in it, right? Because if you don't believe in it, it might cause some miscommunication or a difference in value, and you might be on this two different pages with your partner. But assuming that you guys are already in a committed, exclusive relationship, you guys are boyfriend and girlfriend. Honestly, the biggest step that prompted us to take that leap of faith is, we always believed in marriage. We met each other and dated each other with the intention of getting married. So from the get-go, it wasn't this situation where we connected and we were like, okay, let's see where it goes. I'm open to whatever it becomes. Jesus, take the wheel. Let it flow. No. I don't believe in that. I believe. Personally, for me, as a woman, I was looking for a man with a plan. I wanted an intentional man. I wanted a man who, wasn't, you don't have to be perfect, but I wanted a man to be able to set the direction, and then, I can set the pace, right? There's a saying, men set the direction and women set the pace, right? Or intensity, right? Yeah. But that's what I appreciate about him, because he knew, I knew that he wanted marriage, he wanted a family, maybe do a passion project or a business together at some point. But he made it very clear from the very beginning of our first conversations, right off the dating apps, that he was looking for a wife. He was looking for somebody to work towards marriage with, to do life with. So from the get-go, I knew we were always going to be on the same page. And at no point was I ever worried about him changing his thoughts on marriage. Again, this is a value thing. And so I think this is important to note, that you have to ask yourself, do you believe in marriage? And if so, what does that look like? What does that mean for you? Is it because you see everyone around you getting married, so it's just one of those things that you want to check off the list, everyone's doing it, so might as well, right? Or are your parents or family members and friends pressuring you to get married? Is this something that you have to kind of do it because you're trying to satisfy, like you're just trying to get them to,
Yeah.
stop talking and stop pressuring you for grandkids and everything, right? You're reaching that age, especially if you're reaching your 30s, like early 30s, mid 30s. Obviously, children, especially for women, is something that we do think about at that age. So yeah, I think it's the number one thing to start with is kind of unpacking marriage, that concept of marriage, that institution, what it means for you. Also worth mentioning what it means to you on a spiritual level, because we're both Christians, and I wasn't as I would say religious. Like I wasn't going to church. I wasn't like proactively reading the Bible, or I didn't have an active walk with God until I met my husband. But and this is one of the things that was very important to me. Even though that I wasn't as active or religious, I knew I wanted a man of God. And when I say a man of God, I don't mean he has to go to church, he has to read the Bible, he has to do all these things, and like righteous man. Like I wanted someone who understood what his relationship with God meant, and I wanted to see that in all aspects of his life. And when I say that, I mean, like, how does he treat his family members? How does he treat his mother and his father? Does he honor his parents? Does he treat strangers with kindness? Does he help those that are in need? Is he humble? Is he does he understand the concept of surrender? Right?
Yeah.
All those things that would at the time I didn't really know, but I always admired that. Right? So on that note, marriage meant something very just like different to him, and I respected that, and I also wanted that for myself. So like I said, the most important thing you have to understand is what define marriage and define what that looks like, and really just assess your heart, why you want marriage, why you want to work towards that, because there's a lot of introspection that you need to do, and in the process of it you may end up unpacking a lot of potential trauma or potential things that you carry from your parents' marriage, and there's just it's a learning process, right?
Yeah, and I'll say and this is just my opinion, our journey, kind of how we got there, but we had some really deep conversations on the first couple dates, right? Like we were talking about kids and what we wanted out of our lives and where are things going, and this was probably on the second date we really got into some of these heavy topics. And that might not be the right fit for everybody, right? Because I do think people get a little squirmish on some of these heavier topics. But for both of us, we were at a point where we were really intentional around going to the next step. And I think you shouldn't be afraid or shy away from those topics if that's what you want, right? I think a lot of people, as they say, they send their representative on those first couple of dates. Even maybe the first couple of months, years of dating, a lot of people have the representative out there, and they're just trying to show the best parts of themselves, or try to not say the wrong thing to scare someone away.
Trying to sell yourself.
Yeah. You're really out there just trying to sell. And it's like, look, you don't have to sell yourself to anybody, right? Like you should be we mentioned in the previous video, is coming to the dating market feeling fulfilled, feeling happy, having peace, and wanting to share that with someone, right? And that means you did the work in your life, you've worked through some of the things that you have to work through, and you're not looking for a relationship to kind of throw this baggage on someone else and say, oh, my life is a mess and I need someone else to help me carry this, right? Like that's not responsible. And so we're assuming that if you're, going into dating, you have aspirations for marriage, you've done that work, right? And you're clear with your partner, your person you're talking to, whatever, where you are in your journey, right? I think that transparency thing is really important. So that's kind of a given and an understood that we want to kind of put out there. But I think what's really important is when once you are a boyfriend and girlfriend, I think the biggest thing for me that I always look for is the pattern and trends, right? So because I'm just a very logical person, my background is in engineering, I'm always looking to say okay, this person told me that they're this kind of person, right? How do their behaviors reinforce that, right? And I try to even do the same in myself, right? I want a partner that's going to keep me accountable. And if they see me kind of swaying or not doing things, or they need me to be someone else, or they need me to kind of step up in certain areas, I want them to be able to kind of talk about that. And we've had tough conversations as part of our relationship. We've talked about things. Yeah. We share things, we talk about it, and I think it's important to have someone where you can share those things. They can, come to you, share wholeheartedly how they're feeling. And yeah, sometimes you might feel a little certain way when you first hear it, but not to react, right? So to kind of be allow them to have the space to kind of talk, and you not jump down their throat as soon as they say something you don't like, right? And I think that's what's a really defining piece when you think about going from a boyfriend to being engaged with somebody, is you kind of want to see how they are over time. And it's important to see kind of how they are under pressure. Like, so I think the reason why people, should date for a little bit of time, give it some time, not rush from like, okay, we're boyfriend and girlfriend to getting married. You just need to see how this person reacts to major life events. So you can imagine if you date someone for like, 2 years, maybe even a year, 3 years, whatever, you're probably going to have some serious life events. And you kind of want to see how that person reacts or handles those different things, right? So let's say you go through a tough time, like maybe you lose a job, maybe you lose a loved one, maybe you have a tough time that you're dealing with, and you're coming to that person, you're confiding in that person, you're talking about things. Like you want them to kind of be there and supportive of you. And it's like you want to make sure that you're also being there and supportive of them as well. So it goes both ways. And I think that's what kind of that dating phase or like that post boyfriend girlfriend towards engagement is like, you kind of want to see who you're really dealing with. And in addition to that, you're trying to kind of paint what your life could look like together. I think it's a big thing that a lot of people sometimes don't always think to do is design the life that you want, right? So let's say you two want to be very healthy, right? And you're like, hey, we want to be traveling when we're like 70, right? Like maybe you say you want to do that, or 80, like, that you can have those dreams and those goals. And if that person also values health, right? Like how can you guys start to integrate that together as part of this phase?
Compatibility.
Right? Yeah. So it's like, maybe it's going to work out together. Maybe you two have different workout styles. Maybe one likes to lift, one likes yoga, but you try to find an in between and, you share some lifting with them. They share yoga with you or whatever the case may be, rock climbing, whatever it might look like. But it's really that like integration and starting to kind of look, kind of think about what a life could look like. And I think that's an important piece where as you kind of build that out, that's what helps you feel comfortable going from like that boyfriend, girlfriend to the engaged phase, right? Is being able to get down on the knee is a big, serious moment, right?
Financially too.
Yeah.
Financially, two become one.
Exactly.
Your finances merge, your lives merge, your families merge. There's just so much merging. So it's a big decision. It's a big leap from being boyfriend and girlfriend. And like, I'll just add one of the biggest things that I had mentioned earlier in this video is that we had an interesting journey. Long story short, we broke up right before we ended up getting back together. And we got engaged shortly after we got back together. And the biggest reason we broke up was well, for one, you mentioned it, is you want to make sure like the person that you're with, for sure, like life will life. And, I think it's easy to get lost in like the honeymoon phase or like the butterfly phase, I should say, sorry. The butterfly phase where, everything's great and, this person, like you get the love high and like you get a sense of belonging and you feel desired, you feel wanted and everything's great, right? But when I always compare it to like a slow, like short, braised short rib in a crock pot. If like the more time you give it, the sweeter the connection. And for me, I do wholeheartedly believe that because I feel like when you do things too fast, too suddenly, you can kind of miss opportunities to get to really know this person. And for us, like I'm so glad we took the time to get to know each other, to travel together, to meet each other, spend time 100%. With family and friends, work out together, like really just almost, I don't want to say trial phase, but like really understand how much we're compatible. Because if we could do this first year, second year, right? Like if past that butterfly phase, like I know there's something meaningful there. It isn't just a fast thing or like something that's we're going based off on a whim or like the vibes or the chemistry, right? It's something we're building a foundation of for a connection that's deep and like sustainable, I should say, because that is essentially what we both saw for marriage. It's not something that not everything's going to be peaches and peaches and butterflies.
Peaches and cream.
Peaches and cream and unicorns and butterflies. Sorry. I always get sayings wrong, but it's not gonna be pretty marriage. And controversial take, but like I personally don't think marriage is hard. I think life can be hard, and marriage, especially depending on who you're with, can make life easier or harder.
Yeah.
And wholeheartedly like can testify like, when you are with the right person, and I'm not saying they have to be perfect by any means, but when you're truly with the right person, even if lives, like you guys are good. Like things get shaken up, but you guys are good. And I bring that up because, back to the story of us breaking up, one of the biggest things that I was personally dealing with that I did not realize that I was dealing with was grief. I had my mom got dementia early onset, way too fast, way too soon. And it just completely wrecked my family and wrecked my sense of self. And mind you, I was also working a lot for family business. And so I was just like, I was working like a mad dog. I thought I knew who I was when I first, met my husband, when we were dating. And, to a certain degree, I still am that person. But I didn't realize and this is a big conviction for me personally, I didn't realize God was trying to work on my grief. And I think it's easy to kind of mask those things when you're first dating and getting to know the person. You want to really present the best version of yourself. You don't want to share the worst and ugly parts. You always want to try to be 1% better, right? And it's human nature for us, all of us, to evolve and become better. We shouldn't go downhill just because we are in a relationship. You should ideally both be moving upwards, even if it's different paths that you take. You guys should obviously be working upwards, right? And evolving and learning and just getting better. And so for me, I didn't realize until, I had to leave the family business and take time for myself to really assess what it is that, I felt the Lord call me to take care of. And a big part of it was the grief. A big part of it was identity crisis. I didn't really know who I was outside of that job, that role, and also a pillar for my family. And that took a toll on our relationship. I struggled with insecurities. I struggled with self-worth. And that is something that was really hard. It's not to say that you can't struggle with insecurity and have a successful step towards marriage. Not saying that, but with where we were headed, I was just I was self-sabotaging. I was clearly just not in a good mental and emotional and spiritual state to work to be there for marriage, because marriage means you have to take into consideration how you're affecting the other person, how you operate is affecting the other person, what decisions you make is affecting the other person. You can't just be on your own and operating on your own. Yes, you are your own person, but you also are sharing life with this person. You're doing life with this person. So whatever you do does impact the other person. But at least that's what marriage meant to us. Yeah. And so when we saw that decline, for me personally, we reached a point where we had to step away. And we took about a month break. Yeah. And it was an interesting situation where we were still talking to each other. Obviously, we still had love for each other. But we were also still very in love with each other. That love never went away. It was just a situation where I knew I needed to take time to myself. I needed to see God. I was rock bottom. And before I could even share my life with the person, I literally felt God just remove that whole whatever I was clinging on to. He just took that away, and he's like, you know what? You have nothing distracting you. I really need you to focus on these things. And if you could just work on these things, you don't have to get it down right away. But if you just start healing, start therapy, start, processing your grief, and, your family needs you. If you start just working on these things, I promise you, I will help with the situation. I will help you heal. And at that point, it was an interesting situation where I truly understood the concept of surrender to God. And I was at that point, I reached a point where I think this is the point where we got back together. From the moment we broke up, my initial reaction in prayer was like, please, Lord, please let us get back together. Please, I can't lose this man. Like, I messed things up. Like, Lord, please, please. I love my husband. Like, please get us back together. But, as I started working on myself and just truly just surrendering and like embracing being rock bottom, I think towards the end of the month, and we didn't set any expectation, any timeline. We knew when we broke up, we were going to potentially go separate ways. Yeah. And at that point, the end of the month, I was at peace. Like I reached a point where I was completely at peace with the possibility that I might never, marry you. Like we might not end up together, and that is completely okay, so long as it's God's will. And I reached a point where I wanted to trust God more than I trust this relationship. I didn't want to put all my trust and dependence on my husband, or not my husband, but currently my husband, but at the time we were broken up, right? But yeah, that was a big step in maturity. And I think that was what essentially, in my perspective, that is what helped us kind of come back together and, see that, like, we trust the Lord and we don't want to put anything on this, but we trust him. And there's a reason we met each other, and we continue to stay in each other's lives while I was healing and going through a lot of depression and, working with a lot. And it was a situation where like at no point did I hate this person. At no point did you hate me. Like we still had love for each other. And yeah, God just, put that in our hearts to come back together. And from that point on, like everything changed. Like that was the point where and when I tell you, like, I don't mean to say it's just because we had space and that solved everything. No, when I say like God really transformed me, like God transformed me. Like I was so desperate to heal. I was so desperate, like, to not be depressed. I was tired of being depressed. I was tired of being insecure. I was tired of like, just like, arguing with my partner, with my husband. I was just tired of being a hot mess. And I wanted it so bad. When you want to heal so badly, you will do everything and anything to get better. And I wasn't even focused on us getting back together. I didn't want to heal just for us to get back together. Yeah. I genuinely wanted to heal because I wanted it for myself. I didn't want, whether God miraculously brought him back to my life or whether God chooses another partner for me at some point, regardless of who it was going to be, I didn't want to bring that to my relationship. I didn't want to bring that to marriage. And I wanted marriage. I knew I wanted marriage. I just knew that there were things a little homework that I had to take care of before I got to that point of preparation. And so that was the moment, in my perspective, where we were finally on the same page, where initially we had set out to marriage, yes. But, life lifed, and I went through some stuff, and he was so gracious and so loving and so supportive, but there came a point where we kind of fell off that initial intention of working towards that, and then we came back together.
I'll be honest, like when we had the break, I thought it was GG. I was like, well, we had a good run. Like, because I do think like, and this is an important piece of dating, right, is you have to be committed, and this is a big thing that we started our relationship on, was you have to be committed to, bring out the best version of your significant other, the person you're dating, right? Like, if you're not committed to that, then I fundamentally believe that you're going to not keep that person accountable. You're going to try to kind of shape them to be who you think they should be. Yeah. And you have to understand that you don't know what's best for somebody else. That is if there's one thing that I could caution anyone against, you do not know what's best for anyone else. We barely know what's best for ourselves at times, right? Like, there's so many decisions that we have to go through and make, and sometimes we can't even to navigate that. So how do we think that we know so much more for what someone else needs to be doing? So I do think in a relationship, you have to be committed to the best version of your partner, and you have to be able to say and take yourself out of that piece and be like, hey, I don't know if this relationship is bringing out the best in you, and I don't know if it's bringing out the best in me. And like, you have to make a commitment to that. And it's hard, don't get me wrong, but because we've been through it and like we actually, walk the walk and talk the talk, it's like I can come to you all and say that and say, hey, you got to be able to be committed to bring out the best in both of you, keeping each other accountable. And when things are just going off the rails, there needs to be something that comes in and kind of course corrects, or there needs to be some voice of reason that comes in. If you're all just so caught up in, oh, we're in love, and I can't say, I love this person.
Belong together.
That's all good and great, but that's
yeah.
not going to last you a lifetime. I'm sorry, right? Like, you need to have hard conversations. You need to talk about things. You need to let a person know like what's working, what's not working. And that's what can tell you a lot around, does this relationship have the staying power to last a lifetime?
Yeah.
And I think it's, the last thing I'll kind of like sum up is around that best version is, I think if you're dating someone, it could be for 6 months, a year. If you're the same person you were 6 months, a year from dating someone, kick them to the curb. Because if this person is not helping you become better, if you're not getting better each day, or they're not inspiring you, right? Like, they are not worth the time. I'll be completely honest with you right now. I'm like, I see some people and, I look at the relationship, I'm just like, you are a nervous wreck. Like, you are stressed out, worried, this and that. And I'm like, people I know. And I'm just like, how is this? You explain to me how this relationship is a good thing. Like, yes, there could be good points, but if you're a nervous wreck, you're just pulling your hair out, you don't know what's going on, and like that's adding to your stress of life. I'm sorry, but it's a very good chance that there's probably someone out there who
it's
will
compatibility.
Yeah, I'm like,
it's nothing personal, and last thing I'll comment on that is I completely agree. And we honestly, we speak from place of love, like of going through that, of feeling like, oh, I love this person, and you can say you love that person, but if to your point, if that person is not making you better, is not adding to your life, and rather taking more away from your life, you could still love that person, but it doesn't mean you have to end up with that person, especially if you believe in marriage, especially if you have a very clear definition of what marriage means to you and what it's supposed to look like for you. It's extremely important to have that conviction and stand on it, because it's hard when you say, oh, every time we're in a situation like that, it's hard to break up. It's hard to do the right thing, right? To hold them accountable. And sometimes the best gift of love that you can have for that person is letting them be single, especially if they're going through stuff in life. The best gift that my husband was able to give me was the space for me to heal. For he loved me so much that even, if we weren't going to be together, he was so loving and so supportive for me to take this space and time without any expectation of us getting back together, by the way, for me to just do what I need to do, because he loved me enough that he wanted the best for 100%. Me. And that meant that we might not end up together. Yeah. And that is a hard reality, especially this day and age. We're so afraid to be alone. We're so afraid of just being in our singlehood and just like not being with that person who's been with you for XYZ or so many years, right? But I'll agree. It's extremely important if to assess whether this person is adding to your life or taking more away, and are they the person that they set themselves out to be? Maybe it's a different version, but like I said, you guys should be going upwards at, even if it's 1%, it should be upwards, right? And if it's not, like it's a very important conversation to have before you get to marriage, right? And so that's our story with going from, a boyfriend and girlfriend to breaking up, to not being boyfriend and girlfriend anymore, to potentially going our separate ways, and then to come back and become boyfriend and girlfriend again, and then getting engaged shortly after, because of our journey, because we allowed ourselves to go through that, because we weren't afraid to do what was painful, right? We honestly, our marriage has been amazing. Our relationship from that point on, we just like let go, like of something we were holding so tight onto. We honestly haven't had any, knock on wood, we honestly haven't had any major arguments, miscommunication. Like, God has been blessing our marriage, our relationship, like in so many ways. And, we made this video because, we believe that every person deserves this. Like, I want this for all my friends and
Yeah.
family, and I want this for everyone. I want this for everyone. So we just want to share our story. We want to share our understanding of, you know, the different categories of a relationship, if you will, and honestly just encourage everybody. Encourage those that are sitting in their singlehood, encourage those that are dating, or boyfriend and girlfriend, and hoping to get to that marriage stage. And yeah.
That's it. Hey, she put it beautifully. I got nothing to add to that. I think you crushed it, babe. But yeah, it was great chatting with you all about this. You know, let us know what you think. Talk to us in the comments, right?
Share
We love to hear from you
experiences.
guys. Like, everyone has different experiences. I think the last thing I will say is you got to trust your story, trust your path, right? Because to be honest, everyone's like life is going to look a little different, right?
Absolutely.
Like, what we share is just our perspective,
Yes.
kind of what we went through. But it's good to have conversations, right? You guys be open-minded, hear different perspectives, and I think that's extremely important.
Absolutely.
So we want a space where people can talk about things. So we want to hear from you all and keep the conversation going.